My small business was audited by my billionaire ex-husband's company. Then he heard twins call me Mom. Part 2. Olivia and Amelia, I said. Olivia is the older by 7 minutes. She's outspoken, confident, a natural leader. Amelia is quieter, more thoughtful, artistic. They're identical in appearance but very different in personality. Do they? He hesitated. Do they look like me? They have your eyes, I admitted. The Blackwood gray, and your chin. Your determination, too, though they express it differently. Another long silence. I could almost see him processing this information, recalibrating his understanding of the past 6 years, of me, of himself. I want to meet them, he said finally, the words clipped and precise. As soon as possible. I expected as much, I said, relieved to have anticipated this reaction. I've consulted with my lawyer and prepared a proposed visitation schedule that would allow you to begin building a relationship with the girls without disrupting their routines. I can email it to you. A visitation schedule, he repeated, a dangerous edge entering his voice. Prepared by your lawyer. How considerate. Maxwell. No, Josephine. You don't get to dictate terms after keeping my children from me for 6 years. I'll have my legal team review the situation, but make no mistake. I will be part of my daughter's lives. Fully part of their lives. The girls' well-being comes first, I said firmly. Any arrangement we make needs to prioritize their emotional security and stability. On that, at least we can agree, he said, his tone marginally less hostile. I'm coming to Chicago. Tomorrow. I want to meet my daughters. My heart raced at the immediacy of his demand. Tomorrow? Maxwell, the girls don't even know about you yet. I need time to prepare them, to explain. You've had 6 years to prepare, he cut in. I'll be on the first flight to Chicago tomorrow morning. Text me your address. We can meet at your home, where the girls will feel comfortable. This isn't a business negotiation, I protested. These are children with feelings, with established routines. They need time to adjust to the idea of meeting their father. Time, Maxwell repeated, the word bitter. More time. Always more time while I miss more of their lives. His pain, raw and unexpected, caught me off guard. This wasn't the cold, calculating response I'd anticipated. This was the reaction of a man genuinely distressed at what he'd lost. Sunday, I offered a compromise. Come on Sunday. That gives me 3 days to talk to the girls, to help them understand who you are and why you're coming. Please, Maxwell, if you truly want what's best for them, give me this time. The pause that followed seemed endless. Finally, he sighed. Sunday. But I want video calls with them before then, once you've explained who I am. And Josephine, don't think for a moment that this is over. We have a great deal to discuss regarding the future. I know, I said quietly. Believe it or not, I want what's best for the girls too. That's all I've ever wanted. We'll see, he replied, non-committal. I'll book a flight for Sunday morning. Expect me around noon. I'll text you the address, I agreed. And Maxwell? They're wonderful, truly wonderful. Whatever else has happened between us, we created something beautiful together. A beat of silence. I look forward to meeting them, he said finally, his voice softer than I'd heard it throughout our conversation. Goodbye, Josephine. The line went dead. I set down my phone with trembling hands, the reality of what had just happened washing over me. Maxwell knew. He was coming to Chicago. In 3 days, he would meet his daughters for the first time. And nothing would ever be the same again. Have you ever had to confront someone who once broke your heart? Share your experience in the comments below. I had just finished texting my address to Maxwell when my office door burst open without warning. I looked up, startled, to find him standing in the doorway, his tall frame filling the space, his expression thunderous. Maxwell, I gasped, rising from my chair. What are you? I thought we agreed on Sunday. I was already on a plane to Chicago when you called, he said, closing the door behind him with deliberate control. I decided I needed to see for myself what my ex-wife had been doing for the past 6 years. I didn't expect to discover she'd been hiding my children. The air in my office seemed to crystallize as Maxwell Blackwood stepped further into the room, his imposing presence making the space that had been mine alone for 6 years suddenly feel small and vulnerable. "This isn't the place for this conversation," I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. "We agreed to meet at my home. For the girls' sake." "The girls," he repeated, the words both foreign and precious on his tongue. "My daughters, who have no idea I exist beyond being a father who lives far away. Is that right, Josephine?" "That's right," I acknowledged, refusing to be intimidated despite the rapid beating of my heart. "And barging into my office like this isn't going to change our agreement. They need to be prepared before they meet you." Maxwell moved to the window, looking out at the Chicago skyline. His profile was exactly as I remembered. The strong jaw, the straight nose, the intensity that seemed to radiate from him even in stillness. 6 years, he said quietly. 6 birthdays. First words. First steps. First days of school. Moments I can never get back. "I know," I said, surprising myself with the genuine regret in my voice. "And I'm sorry for that loss. But I made the best decision I could at the time for them." He turned to face me, his gray eyes, the same eyes I saw every morning in my daughter's faces, cold with anger. "You made the decision that suited you. Don't pretend it was altruistic." "It wasn't entirely altruistic," I admitted. "I was hurt, betrayed, and terrified of raising children with a man who had made it clear they would always come second to his ambitions. But every decision I've made since then, every single one, has been for their benefit, not mine. And you think keeping them from their father benefited them?" His voice rose slightly, the control slipping. "I think keeping them from feeling like inconveniences in their father's grand plan benefited them, yes." I met his gaze directly. "You said it yourself, Maxwell. Children are anchors that drag you down when you're trying to rise. Those were your exact words when your college friend announced his wife's pregnancy. Should I have subjected my daughters to a father who saw them that way?" Maxwell flinched as if I'd struck him. "People change, Josephine." "So I've been told," I replied, "repeatedly. By your brother, by my lawyer, by everyone who thinks I should just forgive and forget that you betrayed our marriage while I was carrying your children." The intercom buzzed before he could respond. My assistant's voice came through, unervingly cheerful. "Ms. Winters, your daughters are here. The school called early dismissal for teacher conferences. Should I send them in?" Maxwell's expression shifted, a flicker of something like panic crossing his face. "Daughters!" The door behind him began to open. I moved quickly, stepping around my desk and intercepting the twins before they could fully enter the office. "Girls, this is a surprise. I thought Aunt Ellie was picking you up today. She had a dentist appointment, remember?" Olivia said, trying to peer around me at the stranger in my office. "The school called her, but she couldn't come, so they called you next." "Who's that?" Amelia asked quietly, her perceptive gaze fixed on Maxwell, who had turned to face the door but seemed frozen in place. I glanced back at Maxwell, seeing the shock on his face as he took in the sight of his daughters for the first time. Their gray eyes, so like his own, their curious expressions, the unmistakable Blackwood features blended with my own. "Girls," I said carefully, "this is Mr. Maxwell. He's a business associate. We were just finishing up." I turned to Maxwell, silently pleading with him to follow my lead. "Mr. Maxwell was just leaving. We'll continue our discussion on Sunday, as planned." For a moment I thought he might refuse, might demand introductions right then and there. But something in my expression must have reached him, the desperate need to protect my daughters from a potentially volatile first meeting with their father. "Of course," he said finally, his voice strained but controlled. "Sunday." He nodded stiffly to the twins. "It was nice to meet you both." "Nice to meet you too," they chorused politely, though Olivia was studying him with unusual intensity. As Maxwell moved toward the door, Olivia suddenly asked, "Are you from Atlanta? You talk like the people on that show Mom watches sometimes." Maxwell paused, a ghost of a smile touching his lips. Yes, I am from Atlanta. Good ear. Our dad lives in Atlanta, Amelia offered innocently. We've never met him, but Mom says we're going to soon. The silence that followed was deafening. Maxwell's eyes met mine over the twins' heads, a storm of emotions in their gray depths. I'm sure that will be a very special meeting, he said finally, his voice rough with suppressed feeling. For everyone involved. With a last, loaded glance at me, he left, closing the door quietly behind him. I exhaled slowly, my heart pounding. The confrontation I'd feared had come and gone, leaving me shaken but standing. And now, the real challenge lay ahead. Preparing my daughters to meet their father, not as a stranger in my office, but as the man who would forever change the shape of our family. Mom! Olivia tugged at my sleeve. Are you okay? You look funny. I smiled down at my perceptive daughter, smoothing her hair back from her forehead. I'm fine, sweetheart. Just a little surprised by your early arrival. Now, what do you say we head home early today? I think we could all use some cookie baking time. As I gathered my things and ushered the twins out of my office, I couldn't help but wonder what Maxwell was thinking as he drove away. Had seeing the girls, so clearly his, yet complete strangers to him, softened his anger? Or had it only strengthened his determination to claim his place in their lives, regardless of my concerns? Sunday would tell, and I would be ready. The next 3 days passed in a blur of preparation, both practical and emotional. I met with Rebecca again to review the legal documents I'd sent Maxwell, though his curt email response had simply stated that his lawyers would be in touch after his visit. I spoke with Eleanor, who promised to be present on Sunday as moral support. And most importantly, I prepared to tell the twins about their father. I chose Friday evening for the conversation after dinner but before bedtime, when the girls were relaxed but not too tired. We sat in our cozy living room, the twins curled up on either side of me on the sofa, a familiar family tableau that would soon be forever altered. I have something important to talk to you both about. I began, my heart racing despite my careful preparation. It's about your father. Olivia perked up immediately, while Amelia grew still beside me. They rarely asked about their father, accepting my vague explanations that he lived far away, but I knew they wondered. You know that your father and I haven't been together since before you were born, I continued. What I haven't told you is that he didn't know about you. He didn't know I was going to have babies when I left Atlanta. He didn't know about us? Olivia's brow furrowed in confusion. Why not? I took a deep breath. Because I didn't tell him. I found out I was pregnant after I had already decided to leave. And I made the choice to raise you by myself. Didn't he want us? Amelia asked quietly, the question piercing my heart. He didn't know about you to want or not want you, I explained gently. And that was my fault, not his. I made a decision that I thought was best for all of us at the time. But now he knows? Olivia pressed, always quick to get to the heart of the matter. Yes, I confirmed. Now he knows, and he wants to meet you both. In fact, he's coming to Chicago on Sunday to see you. The twins exchanged one of their silent communications, a glance that conveyed an entire conversation between them. Is he nice? Amelia finally asked. How to answer that? Maxwell Blackwood was many things. Brilliant, driven, charismatic. But nice? That had never been a word I associated with him. He's very smart, I said carefully, and successful. He runs a big company in Atlanta, and he has another child, a little boy named James. He's your half-brother. We have a brother? Olivia's eyes widened. Is he coming too? Not this time, I said. This first visit is just your father. His name is Maxwell Blackwood. Blackwood, Amelia repeated. Like Mr. Darius. Are they related? I nodded, impressed by her quick connection. Yes, they're brothers. Mr. Darius is your uncle. Is that why he has eyes like ours? Olivia asked. Yes, sweetheart. The gray eyes run in the Blackwood family. You both have your father's eyes. The girls fell silent, processing this information. I waited, giving them space to formulate their questions, fighting the urge to fill the silence with reassurances. "Why is he coming now?" Amelia finally asked. "If he didn't know about us before?" "Because Mr. Darius saw your picture in my office," I explained. "He recognized that you look like Blackwoods, and he told your father about you. And now he wants to meet us," Olivia said, making it a statement rather than a question. "Yes," I confirmed. "He's very excited to meet you both. Will he take us away?" Amelia's voice was small, her hand tightening on mine. "No," I said firmly. "This is your home. You live here with me. Your father just wants to get to know you, to be part of your lives." "Like Zoe's dad?" Olivia asked, referring to a friend from school whose parents were divorced. "She sees her dad on weekends sometimes." "Something like that," I agreed, relieved at the simple comparison. "We'll figure out the details as we go along. The important thing is that you both know that I love you more than anything in the world, and that will never change. And your father wants to know you and love you too." "Can we talk to him before Sunday?" Olivia asked. "On the computer, like we do with Grandma when she's in Florida?" "Yes, actually," I said, surprised by her suggestion. "Your father did ask if he could video call with you before Sunday. Would you like that?" The twins exchanged another look. Amelia nodded slightly, and Olivia spoke for both of them. "Yes, so it's not so strange when he comes." "That's very sensible," I said, proud of their maturity. "I'll arrange it for tomorrow. And remember, you can ask me any questions you have, anytime. This is a big change, and it's okay to have lots of feelings about it." "Are you sad, Mom?" Amelia asked, her perceptive gaze fixed on my face. The question caught me off guard. "Why do you ask that, sweetheart?" "Because you keep doing this," she said, touching the space between her eyebrows where a furrow had formed on my own forehead. "And your voice sounds different." I smiled, smoothing my expression. "I'm not sad exactly. I'm a little nervous because this is a big change for all of us. But I'm also happy that you'll get to know your father. Everyone deserves to know where they come from." This seemed to satisfy them, and the conversation shifted to more practical questions. What their father looked like, what they should call him, whether they should dress up for his visit. I answered as honestly as I could, showing them a photo of Maxwell from a business magazine, suggesting they could call him Dad or Father or whatever felt comfortable, assuring them that they should wear whatever made them feel good. By bedtime, the initial shock had given way to cautious curiosity. As I tucked them in, Olivia asked one final question. "Mom, will you and Dad get back together now?" The innocent query made my heart stutter. "No, sweetheart. Your father is married to someone else now, James's mother. And even if he wasn't, sometimes adults can be good parents together without being married to each other." "Like Zoe's parents," Amelia murmured sleepily. "Exactly," I said, kissing her forehead. "Now get some sleep. We have a big weekend ahead." The next morning, I texted Maxwell to arrange the video call. His response was immediate, suggesting 4 p.m. Chicago time. I agreed, then spent the day alternating between normal Saturday activities with the girls and moments of quiet panic about what lay ahead. At precisely 4 o'clock, my laptop chimed with an incoming call. The twins, freshly bathed and dressed in matching purple dresses they'd selected themselves, sat beside me on the sofa, their expressions a mixture of excitement and apprehension. "Ready?" I asked them. They nodded in unison, and I accepted the call. Maxwell's face filled the screen. He looked much the same as I remembered, perhaps a few more lines around his eyes, a touch of silver at his temples, but still handsome, still commanding. He was in what appeared to be a hotel room, dressed in a crisp blue shirt, his expression carefully neutral. "Hello, Josephine," he said, his eyes moving past me to the twins. His composure faltered visibly as he took in their faces. "And you must be Olivia and Amelia." "I'm Olivia," my bolder daughter said, leaning forward slightly. "This is Amelia. She hurt her wrist at school, but it's better now." "I'm very glad to hear that," Maxwell said, his voice gentler than I'd ever heard it. It's wonderful to meet you both." I've been looking forward to it. Mom says you're our father, Amelia said quietly, and that you didn't know about us before. Maxwell's eyes flickered to me briefly before returning to the twins. That's right. I just found out a few days ago, and I wanted to meet you as soon as possible. We have your eyes, Olivia informed him. Mom says they're Blackwood eyes. A smile touched Maxwell's lips. Yes, they are. My father had the same gray eyes, and his father before him. It's a family trait. Do you have other children? Amelia asked. Mom said we have a brother. Yes, you have a half-brother named James. He's 3 years old. Maxwell shifted slightly, seeming unsure how much to share. He's very excited to learn he has big sisters. Does he have Blackwood eyes too? Olivia wanted to know. He does, Maxwell confirmed, though his hair is lighter than yours. The conversation continued, awkward but earnest. The twins asked about Atlanta, about Maxwell's work. I help people grow their money. About whether he liked cookies. He did. And broccoli. He didn't. Maxwell asked about school, their friends, their favorite books and activities. I remained silent for the most part, watching this first tentative connection form between my daughters and their father. After about 20 minutes, I could see the twins growing restless. I think that's enough for today, I suggested gently. We'll see you tomorrow in person. Maxwell nodded, though he seemed reluctant to end the call. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you, Olivia and Amelia, for talking with me today. Bye, Dad, Olivia said, testing out the title. Beside her, Amelia gave a small wave. After the call ended, the twins were unusually quiet. What did you think? I asked carefully. He seems nice, Olivia said after a moment. But serious. He looks like us, Amelia observed. Around the eyes and mouth. Yes, he does, I agreed. How do you feel about meeting him tomorrow? They exchanged one of their looks again. Okay, Olivia said finally. But we want you to stay with us. Of course, I assured them. I'll be right there the whole time. That night, after the twins were asleep, I sat in my kitchen with Eleanor, dissecting the video call and preparing for the next day. He seemed different, I admitted. Less cold than I expected. Almost vulnerable. Fatherhood changes people, Eleanor suggested. Darius said he's different with his son, right? Maybe he really has changed. Maybe, I conceded. Or maybe he's just on his best behavior until he gets what he wants. Which is? I sighed. That's what terrifies me, Ellie. I don't know what he wants. Access to the girls, certainly. But how much? And on what terms? Will he try to take them to Atlanta? Will he demand they spend holidays, summers with him? Will he try to integrate them into the Blackwood dynasty, complete with expectations and obligations? You can't control that, Eleanor pointed out gently. All you can do is be there for the girls, help them navigate this new relationship, and stand firm on what matters most, their well-being. I know, I said, though the thought of sharing my daughters with Maxwell, of having him as a permanent fixture in our lives after 6 years of independence, still filled me with dread. I just hope he truly sees them, not as Blackwood heirs, not as extensions of himself, but as the unique, wonderful people they are. If he doesn't, Eleanor said firmly, then he doesn't deserve them, and they're smart enough to figure that out for themselves eventually. Sunday dawned bright and clear. Another perfect autumn day. The twins were up early, too excited and nervous to sleep late. They changed outfits 3 times before settling on matching denim jumpers with different colored shirts underneath. Purple for Amelia, green for Olivia, their way of asserting their individuality within their twinship. Eleanor arrived at 11, bearing a casserole for lunch and moral support for me. By 11:30, the house was spotless, lunch was warming in the oven, and the twins were stationed at the front window, watching for the car that would bring their father to them for the first time. At precisely noon, a sleek black town car pulled up in front of our house. The twins gasped in unison. He's here, Olivia announced, grabbing her sister's hand. Mom, he's here. I took a deep breath, smoothing my simple navy dress with suddenly damp palms. Remember, just be yourselves. You don't have to do or say anything special. This is about getting to know each other. The doorbell rang, and the twins looked to me expectantly. With Eleanor at my side, I moved to answer it, my heart pounding as if I were 29 again, facing Maxwell Blackwood for the first time. He stood on my porch, tall and imposing in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than a month of my mortgage payments. In his hands was a large gift bag and what appeared to be a bouquet of flowers. His expression as he saw me was unreadable. "Josephine," he said, his voice formal. "Thank you for allowing this visit." "Maxwell," I replied, stepping back to let him enter. "Please come in." He stepped into my home, his gaze sweeping over the cozy living room with its comfortable furniture, colorful artwork, much of it created by the twins, and abundant bookshelves. His eyes settled on the twins, who stood side by side near the sofa, watching him with identical expressions of cautious curiosity. For a moment, no one spoke. Maxwell seemed frozen, taking in the sight of his daughters in person for the first time. Their gray eyes, so like his own, their curious expressions, the unmistakable Blackwood features blended with my own. "Hello, Olivia." "Hello, Amelia," he said finally, his voice gentler than I'd ever heard it. "I'm very happy to meet you in person." Olivia, brave as always, stepped forward first. "Hello, Dad," she said, the title still new on her tongue. "We've been waiting by the window for you." "I brought you something," Maxwell said, kneeling to their level and setting down the gift bag. "And these are for your mother," he added, extending the bouquet to me. Yellow daisies, my favorite from our courtship days. The fact that he remembered sent an unexpected pang through me. "Thank you," I said, taking the flowers. "That's very thoughtful. Can we open it now?" Amelia asked, eyeing the gift bag. "Of course," Maxwell said. "It's for both of you to share." The twins needed no further encouragement. They sat on the floor and eagerly pulled out the tissue paper to reveal two identical stuffed bears, each wearing a miniature Atlanta Falcons jersey. "Bears from Atlanta," Maxwell explained. "Where I live. I thought you might like to have something from there." "They're so soft," Amelia said, hugging hers immediately. "Thank you." "Mine's name is Atlanta," Olivia decided promptly. "Because that's where you live." "A good name," Maxwell agreed, something like wonder crossing his face as he watched his daughters embrace his gifts. He glanced up at me, a question in his eyes. "Why don't we all sit down?" I suggested, gesturing to the living room. "Eleanor has made lunch, but it's not quite ready yet. This will give us a chance to talk." Maxwell nodded, rising to his feet. He extended a hand to Eleanor, who had been watching silently from the doorway. "You must be Josephine's sister. Thank you for welcoming me into your family gathering." "I'm here for the girls," Eleanor said pointedly, though she shook his hand. "And for my sister." If Maxwell was offended by her cool reception, he didn't show it. He simply nodded and took a seat in the armchair, while the twins settled on the sofa between Eleanor and me. "So," he said, looking at his daughters, "tell me about yourselves. What do you like to do? What are your favorite subjects in school?" The twins launched into animated descriptions of their lives, their friends, their teacher Ms. Rodriguez, their favorite books and games. Maxwell listened intently, asking thoughtful questions that revealed genuine interest. He seemed particularly pleased when Amelia mentioned her love of math and Olivia described her fascination with how things worked. "Blackwood traits," he murmured almost to himself. "The analytical mind. They're their own people," I said quietly, "with their own unique gifts." Maxwell's eyes met mine, a flash of the old tension between us. "Of course," he conceded. "But surely you can see the family resemblance in more than just appearance." Before I could respond, Olivia asked, "What was Mom like when you knew her?" "Before we were born." The question caught us both off guard. Maxwell's expression softened slightly as he looked at me, then back at our daughter. "Your mother was the most talented designer I'd ever met," he said finally. She could walk into a space and immediately see what it could become, not just what it was. And she was brave. She always spoke her mind, even to people who weren't used to being challenged. Like you? Amelia asked perceptively. A smile touched Maxwell's lips. Yes, like me. Your mother never let me get away with anything. Is that why you got divorced? Olivia asked bluntly. Because you didn't like being challenged? The room fell silent. I held my breath, waiting for Maxwell's response to this unexpectedly direct question. No, he said after a moment, his voice carefully measured. We got divorced because I made mistakes. Serious mistakes that hurt your mother deeply. And by the time I realized what I'd lost, she was gone. The simple honesty of his answer surprised me. There was no deflection, no attempt to minimize his role in our marriage's collapse. Just a straightforward acknowledgement of fault that I'd never expected to hear from Maxwell Blackwood. People make mistakes, Amelia said solemnly. That's what Mom always says. The important thing is to learn from them. Your mother is very wise, Maxwell said, his eyes meeting mine briefly. And she's right. I've tried to learn from my mistakes. The conversation shifted to safer ground after that. Questions about Atlanta, about James, about what the twins might like to do if they visited someday. Throughout it all, I watched Maxwell with my daughters, looking for signs of the cold, calculating man I'd left behind. But what I saw instead was someone trying, genuinely trying, to connect with these small people who shared his blood but were strangers to him. When Eleanor announced that lunch was ready, we moved to the dining room. The meal was surprisingly comfortable, with the twins dominating the conversation as they often did, peppering Maxwell with questions about everything from his favorite food to whether he could swim, he could very well, to if he knew how to braid hair, he didn't, but offered to learn. After lunch, Maxwell asked if he could see the twins' room. I nodded, and they eagerly led him upstairs, proud to show off their space with its twin beds, overflowing bookshelves, and walls decorated with their artwork. Left alone with Eleanor in the kitchen, I let out a long breath. This is not what I expected. He's really trying, Eleanor observed, loading dishes into the dishwasher. And the girls seem comfortable with him. Too comfortable? I worried. They've just met him. What if he disappoints them? What if this is all an act to get what he wants, and once he has it, he reverts to the Maxwell I knew? Then you'll be there to pick up the pieces, Eleanor said simply. But Josie, what if it's not an act? What if he genuinely wants to be a father to them? Can you make space for that possibility? Before I could answer, footsteps on the stairs announced the return of Maxwell and the twins. Olivia was chattering about her rock collection, while Amelia carried a drawing she'd apparently just completed. Look, Mom, she said, holding up the picture. I drew our family. See? There's you and me and Olivia and Aunt Ellie and Dad and James, even though we haven't met him yet. The drawing showed stick figures of varying heights, all holding hands in a line. The simplicity of it, the easy inclusion of Maxwell and his son in our family, brought unexpected tears to my eyes. It's beautiful, sweetheart, I managed. A perfect family portrait. Maxwell was looking at the drawing with an expression I couldn't quite read. Something between wonder and regret. May I have a copy? He asked Amelia. To take home with me? She nodded solemnly. I'll make you one to keep. This one is for our refrigerator. As the afternoon wore on, I could see the twins growing tired, the excitement of the day catching up with them. Maxwell noticed too, checking his watch with a reluctant expression. I should be going, he said. My flight back to Atlanta is this evening. The twins' faces fell in identical expressions of disappointment. Will you come back? Olivia asked. Very soon, Maxwell promised. And perhaps when you're ready you could come visit me in Atlanta. Meet your brother. See where I live. We'd like that, Amelia said, looking to me for confirmation. Wouldn't we, Mom? We'll see, I said carefully. There's a lot to figure out first. But yes, I think that would be nice someday. Maxwell nodded, accepting my cautious response. Before I go, could I have a moment to speak with your mother alone? He asked the twins. Just for a few minutes. The girls looked to me questioningly. It's okay, I assured them. Why don't you help Aunt Ellie choose a movie for tonight? I'll join you soon. Once the twins had disappeared into the living room with Eleanor, Maxwell and I stepped onto the front porch for privacy. The autumn air was crisp, leaves swirling across the lawn in a dance of red and gold. For a moment, neither of us spoke. They're extraordinary, Maxwell said finally. You've done an amazing job with them, Josephine. Thank you, I said, the compliment warming me despite my lingering wariness. They are extraordinary, and they deserve the best from both of us going forward. I agree. He turned to face me directly. I won't pretend I'm not angry about the years I've missed. 6 years of birthdays, first words, first steps. Time I can never get back. I understand that, I acknowledged. And I won't pretend I don't have reasons for the choice I made. But what matters now is what's best for Olivia and Amelia. On that, we are in complete agreement. Maxwell's expression was serious. I've instructed my lawyers to review the documents you sent, but I want to be clear about my intentions. I don't want to disrupt the girls' lives unnecessarily. I don't want to drag them through a custody battle or force them to choose between parents. Relief washed through me. That's good to hear. However, he continued, his tone firming, I do want to be a real father to them, not just a visitor who appears occasionally with presents. I want them to know their brother, their grandparents, their extended family. I want them to understand their heritage. The Blackwood legacy, I said, unable to keep a hint of bitterness from my voice. Yes, Maxwell admitted unapologetically, but on their terms, not mine. I've learned some things about fatherhood with James. Children aren't extensions of ourselves, no matter how much they may resemble us. They're their own people with their own paths. The sentiment, so at odds with the Maxwell I'd known, caught me off guard. That's surprisingly insightful. A smile touched his lips. People can change, Josephine. Even Blackwoods. So what are you proposing? I asked, bringing the conversation back to practicalities. For now, regular visits. I can come to Chicago every other weekend. Video calls during the week. As the girls become more comfortable, perhaps they could spend school breaks in Atlanta. He hesitated. And I'd like to provide financial support. College funds at minimum. They're Blackwoods. They should have the advantages that come with the name. They're Winters, I corrected gently. At least legally. And they don't need your money. I've provided well for them. I know you have, Maxwell acknowledged. But it's not about need. It's about what's rightfully theirs. He paused. Would you consider hyphenating their last names? Winters Blackwood? It would be a gesture of reconciliation, of acknowledging both sides of their heritage. I hadn't expected this request, but as I considered it, I found I wasn't opposed. The girls were Blackwoods by blood, whether I liked it or not. Denying that part of their identity wouldn't serve them in the long run. I'll think about it, I promised, and discuss it with the girls when they're ready. This is all very new for them. For all of us, Maxwell agreed. He glanced at his watch reluctantly. I need to head to the airport. My driver is waiting. Of course. I moved toward the door, then paused. Maxwell, thank you for today, for being gentle with them, for listening, for seeing them as they are. They make it easy, he said simply. They're remarkable children. He hesitated, then added, I meant what I said earlier, about my mistakes. I was a fool, Josephine, too blinded by ambition to see what was truly valuable. The admission, so unexpected after all these years, left me momentarily speechless. We can't change the past, I said finally, but we can do right by the girls now. Exactly, he acknowledged. That's why I hope we can go forward as respectful co-parents, differently than we might have before, for the girls' sake. For the girls, I agreed firmly. We returned inside, where Maxwell said his goodbyes to the twins. There were hugs, tentative but genuine, and promises to call soon. As he walked to his waiting car, Olivia and Amelia stood at the window, waving until the vehicle disappeared around the corner. "Well?" Eleanor asked when the twins had gone upstairs to put their new bears on their beds. "How did the private conversation go?" "Surprisingly well," I admitted. "He wants to be involved, but he's not making unreasonable demands. At least not yet. And you? How are you feeling about all this?" I sank onto the sofa, suddenly exhausted, overwhelmed, relieved, terrified, all at once. I looked up at my sister. For 6 years it's been just us, you, me, the girls, our little family unit. Now there's Maxwell and James, and the entire Blackwood clan waiting in the wings. Everything is going to change. Change isn't always bad, Eleanor reminded me gently. The girls seemed happy today, and having their father in their lives. A father who wants to know them, who respects their mother. That could be a beautiful thing. If he continues as he began today, I cautioned. Maxwell Blackwood has always played the long game. I can't help wondering if this is just the opening move in a strategy one don't yet see. Then stay vigilant, Eleanor advised. But also stay open to the possibility that people can change. That fatherhood might have transformed him in ways you never expected. The twins thundered back down the stairs, their new bears clutched in their arms. "Mom, can we call Dad tonight to say thank you again for our bears?" Olivia asked. "And to tell him we named them?" "What did you name yours, Amelia?" I asked, noticing she hadn't announced her choice earlier. "Maxwell," she said shyly, "after Dad. Is that okay?" My heart constricted at the simple gesture of connection. "Of course it's okay, sweetheart. And yes, we can call your father tonight." As the girls cheered and raced off to decide what movie to watch, Eleanor squeezed my hand. "One day at a time, Josie. That's all any of us can do. One day at a time," I agreed, watching my daughters. Our daughters, mine and Maxwell's, with their bears named Atlanta and Maxwell, tangible symbols of the new reality we were all stepping into together. The weeks that followed established a rhythm none of us could have anticipated. True to his word, Maxwell visited Chicago every other weekend, gradually extending his stays from afternoon visits to full weekends. He rented a furnished apartment in a building not far from ours, creating a space where the twins could feel comfortable during their time with him. Video calls became a nightly ritual, with the girls eagerly sharing their day's adventures with their father. Maxwell listened with genuine interest, asking questions that showed he was truly paying attention to the details of their lives. He remembered Olivia's science project deadline and Amelia's piano recital date without prompting. Small things, perhaps, but significant to two little girls getting to know their father for the first time. 1 month after his first visit, Maxwell brought James to Chicago. The meeting between the twins and their half-brother was a moment of pure magic. Despite the age difference, the 3 children connected instantly, the girls delighting in showing their little brother their favorite park and teaching him games they'd invented. James, a miniature version of Maxwell with the same serious gray eyes, looked at his big sisters with undisguised adoration. "He has your smile," Maxwell observed as we watched the children play. "James, everyone says he looks exactly like me, but his smile, that's all Victoria. Just like the girls have your smile." I glanced at him, surprised by the observation. "I never noticed." "I did," he said simply. "From the first moment I saw them." These moments, quiet, unexpected glimpses of a Maxwell I'd never known, continued to catch me off guard. The man who patiently helped Amelia practice her piano pieces, who built elaborate block towers with James while discussing Olivia's questions about how skyscrapers stayed standing, seemed worlds away from the driven, often cold husband I'd left behind in Atlanta. "He's different with them than he was with you," Eleanor observed after witnessing one such interaction. "More present, more patient. People change," I acknowledged, echoing Maxwell's own words. Or maybe this was always in him and he just needed the right catalyst to bring it out. The first real test of our new arrangement came at Thanksgiving. Maxwell invited the twins to Atlanta to meet their grandparents and extended family. The thought of sending my daughters into the heart of Blackwood territory without me filled me with anxiety, but I recognized the importance of the connection. "What if we compromise?" I suggested during one of our now regular co-parenting discussions. The girls and I come to Atlanta for Thanksgiving Day itself, but stay at a hotel rather than the Blackwood estate. That way, they have the security of having me nearby for their first major family gathering. Maxwell considered the proposal. That seems reasonable, he agreed. Though I hope you'll at least consider joining us for the meal. It would make the girls more comfortable and I think it would mean a lot to my parents to meet the mother of their granddaughters. The invitation surprised me. I'm not sure that's a good idea, Maxwell. There's a lot of history there. History we've all had to reconsider in light of recent events, he pointed out. My parents were shocked when they learned about the twins, but they're eager to know them, and to understand the woman who raised such remarkable granddaughters. In the end, I agreed to attend the Thanksgiving dinner, if not the entire weekend of Blackwood festivities. The decision proved unexpectedly rewarding. Maxwell's parents, whom I'd always experienced as formal and somewhat cold, showed a warmth toward the twins that melted years of preconceptions. His mother, in particular, seemed transformed by the discovery of granddaughters she'd never known existed. "They have the Blackwood eyes," she said to me privately, watching the twins interact with their cousins. "But they have your spirit, Josephine, your independence. Thank you for raising them to be so confident, so secure in themselves." The acknowledgement, from a woman who had once intimidated me with her old money poise and exacting standards, brought unexpected tears to my eyes. "They make it easy," I said, echoing what both Maxwell and I had expressed about our daughters. "They're extraordinary children." "Yes," she agreed, "they are. And they deserve to know all parts of their heritage. The Blackwood legacy, yes, but also the strength and resilience they've clearly inherited from you." By Christmas, the boundaries between our separate lives had softened enough that we agreed to a shared celebration. Maxwell came to Chicago for Christmas Eve and Christmas morning at my home. Then the twins traveled to Atlanta with him for the remainder of their school break, with me joining them for New Year's Eve. It wasn't perfect. There were moments of tension, old wounds that reopened unexpectedly, disagreements about parenting approaches and future plans. But through it all, we maintained a united front for the girls, never allowing our adult complications to burden their growing relationship with their father. "You've been remarkably gracious about all this," Darius observed during one of his now regular visits to Chicago. True to his word, he had become a presence in the twins' lives, the fun uncle who took them sailing on Lake Michigan and introduced them to his passion for photography. "Many women in your position would have fought Maxwell every step of the way." "I considered it," I admitted. "But what would that accomplish? The girls adore him. He's proven himself committed to them. Fighting would only hurt Olivia and Amelia in the long run." "And you?" Darius asked perceptively. "How are you handling having Maxwell back in your life after all these years?" I considered the question carefully. "It's complicated. The Maxwell I see with the girls is not the man I left 6 years ago. He's more patient, more present, more willing to compromise. Sometimes I catch glimpses of him with them and wonder if this is who he could have been with me, if circumstances had been different." "People grow," Darius said simply, "sometimes in directions we never anticipated." 6 months after Maxwell's first visit to Chicago, as winter gave way to spring, I received an unexpected offer. A prestigious design firm in Atlanta wanted to open a Chicago branch and was interested in acquiring Winters' design studio, with me staying on as creative director and partner. "Did you have something to do with this?" I asked Maxwell during his next visit, showing him the offer letter. "I may have mentioned your firm's reputation to some associates," he admitted. "But the offer is based entirely on your work, Josephine. Your talent, your vision. I wouldn't presume to interfere with your professional life." I studied him, looking for signs of the manipulative tactics I'd once associated with all things Blackwood. But his expression was open, his tone sincere. "It would make the logistics easier," he pointed out when I remained silent. "If you're considering it, the girls could divide their time more equally between Chicago and Atlanta without disrupting your career." "I've built something here," I said, gesturing to the home around us. "A life, community, friends. It's not just about the business. I know, Maxwell acknowledged, and I'm not suggesting you uproot everything. Just consider the possibilities. For yourself as much as for the girls. That night, after the twins were asleep, I sat on my back porch, watching the stars emerge in the spring sky. 6 months ago, my greatest fear had been Maxwell Blackwood discovering the existence of our daughters. I'd been terrified he would try to take them from me, to reshape them in the Blackwood image, to disrupt the careful life I'd built. Instead, he had surprised me at every turn, respecting my role as their mother, adapting to our established routines, creating space for himself in their lives without diminishing my place in it. He'd become a partner in parenting, if not in life, a co-creator of a new kind of family that none of us had imagined possible. The business offer represented a crossroads. I could maintain the status quo, keeping my professional and personal lives firmly rooted in Chicago, with the twins traveling to Atlanta for their time with Maxwell. Or I could consider a more fluid arrangement, one that would allow our daughters to move more seamlessly between their two worlds, and perhaps allow me to expand my own horizons in the process. As I weighed the decision, I realized that the fear that had driven me for 6 years, fear of Maxwell, fear of the Blackwoods, fear of losing control, had gradually been replaced by something else. Not trust exactly, we had too much history for that, but a cautious faith in our shared commitment to our daughters' well-being. A recognition that people could change, that second chances were possible, that the future didn't have to be defined by the past. The next morning, as I watched Maxwell and the twins making pancakes in my kitchen, Olivia directing operations with characteristic authority, Amelia carefully measuring ingredients, Maxwell following their instructions with amused patience, I made my decision. I'm going to consider the offer, I told him when the girls had gone upstairs to dress for the day. Not because it's what you want, but because it might be what's best for all of us. A new chapter. Maxwell's smile, genuine, without the calculation I'd once seen in every expression, warmed something long cold within me. A new chapter, he agreed. One we write together, for their sake. For their sake? I echoed, watching as our daughters descended the stairs, chattering about the day's plans, secure in the knowledge that both their parents would be there to share in their adventures. 6 years ago, I'd fled Atlanta with nothing but my maiden name and the secret of new life growing inside me. I'd built a world for my daughters, safe, stable, filled with love and opportunity. I'd believed that world could only exist apart from Maxwell Blackwood and everything he represented. Now, standing in my Chicago home with Maxwell and our daughters, I understood that the strongest foundations aren't built on separation but on reconciliation. Not the reconciliation of a marriage, that chapter was truly closed, but the reconciliation of two people who had created something precious together and were finally learning to honor that creation with grace, respect, and a shared commitment to the future. The audit that had once threatened everything I'd built had instead opened the door to something I never could have imagined. A family expanded rather than divided, strengthened by challenge rather than broken by it. A family where our daughters could embrace all parts of their heritage, where they could love both parents without conflict or guilt. A family defined not by legal documents or living arrangements, but by the love that surrounded two remarkable little girls with Blackwood eyes and Winters smiles, who had brought their parents back into each other's orbits and taught us both what truly mattered. If this story of resilience and reclaiming your power resonated with you, hit that subscribe button to join our timeless love tales with Mr. Harrison community of strong women. Share this video with a sister who needs to hear this message today, and drop a comment below about a time when you had to stand in your power against all odds. Remember, queens, our greatest strength often emerges from our deepest challenges. 1 year after Maxwell Blackwood walked into my office for that fateful audit, I stood in the doorway of my new Chicago home, watching movers carry in the last of our furniture. The house was larger than our previous one, a gracious Victorian with a wraparound porch and enough bedrooms for the twins to each have their own space, plus guest rooms for when family visited. The move had been just one of many changes that year had brought. Winters' design studio had merged with the Atlanta firm, creating a stronger, more versatile company with offices in both cities. I divided my time between Chicago and Atlanta, spending 3 weeks of each month in our home base and 1 week at the southern office. The twins, now approaching 7, had adapted to our new arrangement with the resilience children often show. They attended the same school in Chicago, maintaining their friendships and activities, but spent one weekend a month in Atlanta with Maxwell, plus extended stays during school breaks. The hyphenated last name, Winters Blackwood, had been made official, a symbol of their dual heritage that they wore with pride. "Mom, Dad's here," Olivia called from the front yard, where she and Amelia had been supervising the movers. Maxwell had promised to take them for ice cream once the moving trucks departed, giving me a few hours of peace to begin the unpacking process. I stepped onto the porch as Maxwell's car pulled into the driveway. He emerged with James in tow, the little boy now 4 and utterly devoted to his big sisters. Victoria had been surprisingly gracious about the sudden appearance of stepdaughters in her son's life, recognizing the bond that had formed between the siblings and encouraging their relationship. "The new house looks wonderful," Maxwell said, joining me on the porch while the children greeted each other with their usual enthusiasm. "The restoration work on the facade turned out beautifully." "It did," I agreed. "Worth every penny and all those arguments with the Historical Preservation Committee." He smiled at the memory of our joint battle with the local authorities over the exterior paint colors. It had been one of many moments over the past year when our professional backgrounds had complemented each other. His financial acumen and connections paired with my design expertise and vision. "Are you sure you don't want help unpacking?" he asked, glancing at the boxes visible through the open door. "I'm sure," I said firmly. "Eleanor's coming over later. We have a system." "Of course you do," he said with a hint of the old teasing that had characterized our early relationship. "Well, we'll have these 3 back by dinner time. Victoria sent some of those pastries the girls like from that bakery near our place." "Tell her thank you," I said, meaning it. The relationship between Maxwell's wife and me had evolved from awkward politeness to genuine respect over the months. We would never be close friends, but we had found common ground in our love for the children who connected us. As I watched Maxwell drive away with all 3 children chattering in the back seat, I felt a sense of peace that would have seemed impossible a year earlier. The audit that had once filled me with dread had ultimately led to healing I hadn't known I needed. Not just for the twins, who now had a father who adored them, but for me as well. I had faced my greatest fear, Maxwell Blackwood re-entering my life, and discovered that the power he once held over me had diminished with time and distance. The woman who had fled Atlanta in the night was not the same woman who now confidently co-parented with her ex-husband, who had expanded her business across state lines, who had created a new kind of family that defied conventional boundaries. Inside my new home, surrounded by boxes containing the physical elements of our life, I found myself reflecting on the less tangible things I'd gained over the past year. Confidence in my decisions, trust in my instincts as a mother, the ability to forgive, not just Maxwell for his past betrayals, but myself for the choices I'd made in fear rather than strength. Eleanor arrived an hour later, armed with takeout and determination to tackle the kitchen unpacking first. As we worked side by side, she asked the question she'd been dancing around for months. "Are you happy, Josie, with how everything has turned out?" I paused, a stack of plates in my hands, considering the question seriously. "Yes," I said finally. "Not in the way I would have imagined a year ago, but yes, the girls are thriving. My business is growing, and I've made peace with a part of my past I thought I'd never have to face again." "And Maxwell?" she pressed. "How do you feel about him now?" It was a complicated question. The man who had broken my heart and betrayed my trust was still there, somewhere beneath the devoted father who now occupied so much space in our lives. But time and perspective had softened the edges of that old pain, allowing me to see him more clearly, both his flaws and his capacity for growth. "I respect him as a father," I said carefully. "I appreciate his commitment to the girls, and I've come to value his perspective on certain things, especially related to the business." Eleanor raised an eyebrow. "That's very diplomatic." I laughed. "What do you want me to say, Ellie? That I've forgiven him completely? That we're best friends now?" "It's more complicated than that." "I know," she acknowledged. "I just wonder sometimes if there might be more between you again eventually. The way he looks at you sometimes, Don't, I said firmly. We've found a balance that works for our family, for the children. Anything more would complicate that unnecessarily. Eleanor held up her hands in surrender. Fair enough. Just an observation. But later that night, after the twins had returned home full of ice cream and stories of their adventure with their father and brother, after they were tucked into their new beds in their new rooms, I found myself thinking about Eleanor's question again. How did I feel about Maxwell Blackwood now? The man who had once been the center of my world, then my greatest heartbreak, and now an inextricable part of my life once more? The truth was more nuanced than I'd been willing to admit to Eleanor. There were moments. Watching him help Amelia with her math homework, seeing him lift Olivia onto his shoulders at a street fair, observing the gentle way he mediated disputes between the siblings. When I glimpsed the man I might have loved, had circumstances been different. The man he might have become, had we found a way through our problems together rather than apart. But that path was closed to us now. Too much had happened, too many years had passed, too many other lives were now entwined with ours. Maxwell had Victoria and James. I had my independence, hard-won and fiercely protected. And we both had Olivia and Amelia, the unexpected gift that had brought us back into each other's orbits and taught us both what truly mattered. As I moved through my new home, turning off lights and checking locks, I paused at the twins' doors, peering in at their sleeping forms. Olivia sprawled across her bed as always, one arm flung dramatically overhead. Amelia curled neatly on her side, her new stuffed bear, a gift from her grandmother Blackwood, tucked under her chin. They were the best of both of us, these remarkable little girls. My creativity and empathy, Maxwell's intelligence and determination, and something entirely their own, a resilience and joy that had survived their parents' mistakes and flourished despite them. In the end, that was the true legacy of the audit that had once terrified me. Not the merging of businesses or the sharing of custody, but the creation of a family that defied conventional definitions. A family built not on the ashes of what was lost, but on the foundation of what remained. Love for two little girls with Blackwood eyes and Winters smiles, who had brought their parents back into each other's orbits and taught us both what truly mattered. The audit had forced me to face my past, but it had also opened the door to a future I never could have imagined. One where strength came not from running away, but from standing firm in my truth. Where power wasn't about control, but about the courage to embrace change. Where healing wasn't found in forgetting, but in forgiving others and myself. As I finally settled into my own new bedroom, I felt a sense of completion that had eluded me for years. The journey hadn't been easy, and there would undoubtedly be challenges ahead as we navigated this complex family dynamic. But for the first time since I'd left Atlanta 6 years earlier, I was no longer running from my past. I was standing firmly in my present, eyes open to the future, secure in the knowledge that I had built something that could withstand any audit. A life of integrity, purpose, and love. A life where my daughters could embrace all parts of their heritage without conflict or shame. A life where I could finally recognize that the woman who had fled in the night and the woman who had built a successful business were both essential parts of who I had become. Strong, resilient, whole. The audit that had once threatened everything I'd built had instead revealed the true foundation of my strength. Not in isolation, but in connection. Not in perfect plans, but in the courage to adapt when those plans inevitably changed. Not in avoiding pain, but in moving through it toward something deeper and more enduring. As I drifted towards sleep in my new home, surrounded by the tangible evidence of the life I'd built and the family I'd created, I felt a sense of peace that had been long in coming. Whatever challenges tomorrow might bring, I would face them not from a place of fear, but from a place of hard-won wisdom and quiet strength. The strength that comes from knowing exactly who you are and what you're capable of surviving. The strength that comes from building something beautiful from the broken pieces of what came before. The strength that comes from choosing love, for your children, for your community, for yourself, even when that choice is the hardest one of all. The strength, in the end, of a woman who had been audited in every sense of the word, and had not been found wanting. Until next time, this is Mr. Harrison, reminding you that your story isn't over yet.